You know those aesthetic moving abroad montages on Instagram? Yeah, this is not that. Try 3 international road trips, 2 vans, 1 car, 0 sleep, nacho chips as dinner and a very disappointed German border control officer. Welcome to episode 5 of our 10-part series about our journey moving abroad. Every Wednesday and Friday this December we're sharing everything. Today we're taking you with us through the actual moving process. It gets chaotic, exhausting and very real as we try to figure out how to get our entire life from the Netherlands to Sweden. And as always, if you have any more questions, leave them in the comment section and we will answer them in upcoming episodes or in the comment section. We should probably start with how our timeline basically created itself. Originally, we thought we'd spend months traveling through Sweden to figure out where we wanted to live, explore, breathe, take our time. But of course, life said no to that plan. We walked into the very first house we saw, walked around, stood there for maybe 2 minutes, looked at each other and we both knew this was it. So instead of a slow Scandinavian research tour, suddenly we had a house, a deadline and a date to pick up the keys. Everything snowballed from there. On top of that, we still had an apartment in the Netherlands that needs to be emptied. Like fully emptied. Floor removed, everything gone. Because I rented it empty, it had to go back empty. So the timeline wasn't something we planned. It was more like, congrats, here's your house, now run. Before we even get to what we brought to Sweden, there's something important we need to rewind to. Because this story didn't start when we rented the van, it actually started months earlier. After my mom passed away, we had to empty my parents' house. And everything I wanted to keep, the meaningful things, the memories, we had already sorted through and packed into boxes. These boxes didn't go anywhere, they ended up filling our storage space and then our bedroom and basically every corner of our apartment. So when we say we had to empty a house before moving abroad, it wasn't one house, it was 2. Our apartment and my mom's house. And even though we had already made tough choices back then, when it came time to actually moving to Sweden, we had to do it all over again. Because here's the thing no one really tells you. Moving abroad isn't just about space, it's about the weight as well. We had a strict weight limit for what we could transport. We were driving through 4 countries and the last thing we wanted was trouble at a border or with an overloaded van. So we weighed everything. Literally everything. We made an Excel sheet, every box, every item, every kilo. We planned it down to the last detail to make sure the van would be safe and legal. That meant making even harder decisions. What do we actually bring to another country? We stood in the middle of our tiny apartment, surrounded by years of accumulated life. And we had to go through every single thing we owned. Clothes, kitchen stuff, decorations, old cables, cameras from the early 2000s that might still be useful, sentimental things, random IKEA bits, all of it. We made 4 piles. Keep, sell, donate, and absolutely beyond saving. And somehow, no matter how ruthless we tried to be, the keep pile kept growing like it had a life of its own. Old hobbies we hadn't touched in years? Gone. Our book collection? Reduced to about 1/3 of what we had. Heavy items we thought we would bring, like an old wood stove from my mom's house, we had to let it go. Same for our bikes. That part hurt a bit, but in hindsight, it made a huge difference. Because here's the thing, we weren't hiring a moving company. We wanted to, trust me, but the quotes were around 10,000 euros for someone else to move our stuff. We just looked at each other and went, nope, we'll figure this out ourselves. So we came up with a plan that sounded simple in theory, but chaotic in reality. Rent a van for an entire month for about 1/3 of the price of the quotes and do it ourselves. 2 trips with the van, 1 trip with the car, and whatever didn't fit wasn't coming to Sweden. End of story. And then, as if the universe wanted to help us make decisions, we discovered mold in our old couch. Like real, actual mold, living its best life right under the place we loved to sit and take naps. So that made the choice easy. Goodbye, tiny couch. You served us well, but not well enough to survive an international move. Because by letting go of the really heavy items, we cut the number of trips in half. Instead of 10 trips, we only had to do 5. That saved us around 9,000 kilometers of driving. And honestly, a massive amount of energy because this move was already exhausting enough. The first trip was all about getting our first load of stuff out of the Netherlands. And also our very first time driving a van. Not just any van, a big one. I'll be honest, there were definitely a few panic moments at the start for me, Nathan didn't really care, which was great. Mirrors everywhere, the size of the thing, the fear of hitting something I couldn't even see. But once we got moving, it was actually easier than I expected. The parking sensors, the 360 view from all the cameras, absolute lifesavers. We packed the van, drove to Sweden and put everything into a storage unit. And while we were there, we had to open our bank account, like we mentioned in episode 3. This was also the moment where we realized 16 to 20 hours in a van is not cute. We drove almost straight through, switching between driving and napping. Hotels were expensive and parking a van full of your life somewhere felt risky. So we pushed through. The second trip was all about picking up the keys. Nathan's parents were already in Sweden at this point, which was such a major help, especially for Pixel. They could look after her while we went back to the Netherlands to finish the last round of chaos. And this trip wasn't just about getting ourselves and our belongings to Sweden, we actually needed the van once we arrived. There were big things we still had to buy and transport in Sweden. Our couch, a bed, mattresses, things that simply won't fit in our car and would have cost a fortune to have delivered. And on top of that, getting deliveries would have been complicated without a person number, which we'll talk about in the next episode. Having that van quickly became essential for setting up our home. And then on the way back with an empty van, something hilarious happened. Enjoying the video? Go like and subscribe. And if you want even more behind the scenes updates, wallpapers and a spot in our end card, go check out our Patreon, it is linked below. We got stopped by German border control. We were already well into Germany when it happened. Out of nowhere, a car pulled in front of us and behind us. We were guided off-road into a separate area and they all got out of their cars. They were armed, very serious, pretty intimidating. And even though we knew we hadn't done anything wrong, that instant, oh god, why us panic, hit immediately. They asked what we were transporting and we were like, nothing. Literally nothing. Just an empty van with only our backpacks and some sleeping bags. They looked genuinely disappointed, like we ruined their day by not smuggling anything. And to make it even better, Nathan had recognized one of them from the border crossing earlier and had looked them straight into the eye. Maybe that was our mistake. We laughed about it for the rest of the drive, but in that moment my heart was racing. We also used the van to clear everything out back in the Netherlands. We had so much stuff to take to the dump and doing it with just the car would have taken 5 separate trips. Having the van saved us hours, maybe even days, and made the whole thing actually possible. Of course, after all that, we had to give the van back. The third and last trip was the final stretch. Us, the car and the last of our belongings. This drive was a bit faster. The car can just go a little quicker, especially through Germany. Every single trip was about 16 to 20 hours depending on traffic, breaks and those classic moments of we're falling asleep, pull over now. Let's talk about the physical part, because driving through the night sounds fun and adventurous until you do it 3 times. We basically survived on nacho chips, hummus, snack tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots, sweet peppers and cheeseburgers from McDonald's. That's the whole food pyramid, right? And yes, we took turns napping, but it's nothing like a proper night's sleep. By the time everything was done, the driving, the moving, the cleaning, the apartment, our bodies completely crashed. We both got pretty bad throat infections at the same time. And from all the heavy lifting, Nathan also hurt his shoulder pretty bad. Our bodies literally said, sit down, stop, you're done. People always ask if we ever doubted the move. Honestly, not really. The only moments of doubt came when we were so exhausted we couldn't even think straight. But emotionally, we were mostly excited. And the very moment it truly hit us that this was real, that this was our new life, was driving to the house with the keys for the very first time. That moment in the car, that was everything. Moving abroad didn't break our relationship. If anything, it made it stronger. We realized very quickly, if we can do this, we can do anything. Between all the driving and packing, there was still the boring but necessary stuff. Changing our address, cancelling subscriptions, redirecting mail. We did all of this ourselves. There are companies who will do this for you, but those are expensive and we were already juggling with so much that doing it step by step felt easier. The house in Sweden was professionally cleaned, but when we arrived, of course, we cleaned it again. You know how that goes. And then slowly it started to feel like a home. After all the chaos, all the kilometers, all the chips and hummus, that first night in Sweden felt surreal. We were exhausted, we were sore, we were absolutely done. But we sat on the floor in our new house, surrounded by boxes, silence and forest. And that moment made everything worth it. If you liked this video, make sure to hit subscribe and follow our journey. We also have Patreon if you want even more behind the scenes content. We have more episodes coming this month about moving apart and making a new home in Sweden. And remember, if you have any more questions, drop them in the comments and we will answer them in future episodes or in the comment section. Next time, in episode 6, we're diving into the messy world of setting things up when you arrive in Sweden. Bank ID, your person number, phone numbers, things going wrong, it's a lot. See you on Friday.